BaconBit?
Yeah, BaconBit.
We're doing a BaconBit?
I know. Is this the first BaconBit of the year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's February,
it?
so we didn't do anything in January.
No, we didn't.
No.
This feels special. This feels new.
Hi. This is a BaconBit. These are shorter versions of our regular show.
Are they, though? Because they're about 45 minutes.
Depends on-
We're going to keep this one short because I have like a direction I want to go with this one.
Okay. And we should clarify that Ken said we're doing a BaconBit like right before hitting record. So Zach and I have no idea what we're even talking about.
Hi, I'm Zach.
We don't do that on BaconBits.
We're talking politics today. I
yes.
just want you guys to know. So we're going to be
Nixon did it.
upfront and honest. Did what?
I don't know. I'm still not quite sure.
But he did it.
So Kent,
Yes.
what is this BaconBit about?
It's not about the Super Bowl, which is very relevant at this time to most people.
Yes.
It's about something that's special to me.
Super Bowl for film nerds.
Yeah, the Sundance Film Festival. Which
No, that the Super Bowl is the Oscars. This is like this is like
come
training
on,
camp.
We do an Oscars show every year, but we're like, are you going to watch?
This is like the draft.
This is the draft.
This
You're
is
right.
the draft.
This
This is
is
the draft.
The college draft.
where like a quarter of the players are good.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
And some of them are going to get picked up by the big studio.
Or you're going to see on some indie channel later someday.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm talking about the Sundance Film Festival, which is pretty weird. Like I've been going for a decade at this point, and started out, I was just buying tickets, which are generally about $20 to $25
Just for
Per
one
movie?
per movie. And with the Sundance Film Festival,
We did a whole episode
It was
about
last
this last year.
I'm
Oh.
just trying to catch people up.
And
There's a
then
full episode.
Ken jinxed
Zach.
it by doing a whole episode about Sundance, and then all movies went away.
Yeah. That was like the last major time I was seeing
I
movies
listened
like
to
that.
half that episode.
Half, only half. If you're listening now, please listen to the whole thing. It's only
I had a thing.
half the size of a normal episode. But yeah, so yeah, there was a curse, obviously, that happened last year. We don't need to go into that. But every festival since last March has been digital or canceled. And so they did, I think everyone hoped that things would be over by the time Sundance hit, which is always the end of January, beginning of February.
Which is the best time to be up in the mountains.
Well, it is for tourism reasons because they hold it
guess,
up at Park City.
But it always just seems like there's a huge blizzard, and everyone's like, travel's terrible.
There always is.
Yeah.
It's like a blessing or a curse, depending on who you ask. For me, it's a curse because you have to find parking and then walk in the snow forever and find your theater, and it's kind of a
free
hassle.
movie that you're seeing before everyone else.
Okay, yes, precisely. Because, yeah, I've been going as a critic for the past 8 years, give or take. And this year, they moved it all digital. I didn't know how that would go. I was pretty nervous about a month ago when I requested tickets. And once again, you don't know what the movies are. You get a one-sentence description and an image, usually, and that's it. No trailer. And so it's kind of like luck of the draw. In fact, once again, in the...
But can't you read all the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes about it, Kent? About these
Thankfully,
movies?
no. There is like no sway or bias or anything. You just have to, generally when you go to these movies, you're going to see people walk out of them because they're like, I'm not wasting my time with this. But that is only maybe 1% to 2% of people in the
I'm
theater.
not wasting my time, but I'm going to give it a bad review.
Yeah, some people do.
And I apologize. I did listen to the episode, but I don't remember. What is your personal like methodology of picking a show?
I look for horror first.
Yeah.
I also look at the sections. Like I'm like, oh, that sounds like it's going to be an awards winner and will be bought, but maybe won't be shown until November. And so I'm going to see that one now.
What if there's a big name?
It depends on the synopsis.
Yeah.
Really.
Like, because the only time I saw a Sundance movie, I had the option of seeing the terrible movie I saw or the movie with The Rock where it's about wrestling.
Oh, that they do special screenings, but it's not a Sundance movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Fighting with My Family is the one you're talking
I was
about.
like, that's
yeah.
not. That's just like
That was fine.
You're premiering this movie early.
They did that this year again with Judas and the Black Messiah. Warner
Yeah.
Brothers is like, hey, here's our big movie. It seems like an indie movie. Hey, everybody.
but it's not.
But it's not.
No, Kent, you just said, I'll look for the ones that are going to get picked up. How do you know from a one-sentence summary what's going to be picked up?
Sometimes it's the charming ones, like if it's a Little Miss Sunshine type movie, I'm like, I'll go see that because that's going to be a nice, warm movie. And then I'll pick some dark movies. Like I said,
why would you pick it then?
He needs to balance.
I do need a balance.
It's 10 horrible death movies to one Little Miss Sunshine.
It's accurate, actually.
Oh.
And a lot of like foreign docs or foreign horror that we would not see here ever. Maybe some streaming channels will pick them up, but it's pretty rare.
Now, just to, once again, we're recapping a little bit of what we said on the previous
We are.
Sundance show. How many movies total do you think play at a Sundance Film Festival?
Every other year, it's about 120. This year, it was 70.
It was 70 movies.
So they trimmed it down. It is usually a week and a half. This time it was 6 days.
And so how many movies does the average person see
I would gather 12.
out of the 120?
Yes. I usually see 12.
Okay.
Because it's travel time, driving, waiting in line, everything like that.
If you pushed yourself at a regular Sundance Film Festival, how many movies could you see?
That would be like Emily.
Yeah.
Usually she bought a pass a couple years ago, I think this year as well, and she will try to see at least 20 in a normal year, which is tough because you have to wait in line an hour for each of these
And
movies.
travel
at
to
least.
theaters and wait in
Precisely.
line. Yeah.
And that's
So-
why I'm like, I will stay with 12 so my brain doesn't rot, and then I'll be happy.
It would be terrible to be one of those other movies that no one went to go see. Mm-hmm. That'd be terrible.
Well, and sometimes people can see the list of what's not sold out. They're like, I'll see it. And then it just goes nowhere. And
Yeah.
people feel like they wasted their time. And now we're at the point where you're streaming it right from your TV.
So that's what I was going to say. Like,
Yeah.
Then it was 12 in person. How many do you think the average person streamed this year?
It's Strom, Joel.
A Strom,
And Strom is the past tense.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere near 15 to 20 on average.
So you're saying people may have watched more
A
movies
higher
this
ratio.
year.
Well, if
Yeah.
you cut out waiting in line, you have no travel. Because a lot of times you might travel from, the Rose Wagner Theater
Right.
to the Grand at Salt Lake Community College to the Egyptian in Park City.
Yeah.
These are all actual theaters you just
Yeah, they are.
mentioned.
They're real. And they all show movies at Sundance.
And tickets were only $15 this year. And so that was
Per
easier.
movie.
Yes. And the screening times were way better because if you miss a movie last year or any year previous by 15 minutes, honestly, by 5 minutes, your seat was given away to somebody in the wait list. Now, if a movie starts at 7, you have up until 10 o'clock to watch. You have a 3-hour window
to
watch your
access it?
movie. Yes. And so for me, it was nice. Like, I'm like, I have my kids tonight. Oh, they go to bed at 9:30? Perfect. 9:31, I'm starting that movie that started at 7.
I guarantee you this will not go away.
I think so too. I
Like
think
it'll
Park
be
City
it'll be
is
a
done for.
it'll be a well they'll probably still have it, but
Like a-
this
like a
will
hybrid?
be a supplementary, and maybe it's hey, if you want to be featured in person you have to pay the organization more, but this will never go away
Or you pay more for tickets.
because that sounds awesome and I would participate.
Which would they charge more for, though? Would they charge for the in-person tickets, like for people to go see it more, or they do the streaming is more?
I think in person because
In-person.
they do have, like, you don't pay volunteers, but they have a ton of volunteers.
That's
they have
true.
to pay Park City.
And that's where
true.
you could get the director
But to
Q&A
cover the
sessions
cost.
after and stuff like that.
To cover the cost, would they want more people going to the theaters and less people watching on streaming? So maybe charge more for streaming.
I wonder, there are still going to be the people that watch them in theaters. I love and hate this. I want the experience. I would want to go see maybe 5 movies in theaters.
I don't love seeing a movie in an uncomfortable theater because that's what I feel like.
No, but
half
you're
of
with a
Sundance is.
group. There was a movie I saw. I'll just get right to it. It's called Prisoners of the Ghostland with Nicolas Cage.
I'm in.
Yeah, right. And he was the description
that was
is
Zach looking down the list of all the movies, and he's like, Nicolas Cage, check.
That one.
so a notorious criminal must break an evil curse in order to rescue an abducted girl who has mysteriously disappeared. And it's got Nicolas Cage maiming it up.
Prisoners of Ghosts.
Prisoners of the Ghostland.
I think we really should now just say Nicolas Cage, the king of B movies. That's his full title.
Hey,
Yes.
Bruce Campbell still holds that title.
No.
So this is like if they took a Kung Fu Hustle type movie,
I love Kung Fu
but
Hustle.
took out like a lot of the zaniness, but it
Aw.
was still kind of like the same period with strange action, and you put Nicolas Cage in the middle in this suit that would kind of like self-destruct after 3 days, and it's such a weird movie, but I laughed out loud a few times, and I was like, this is the perfect movie for a theater.
Like, going to self-destruct.
I will tell you about it after the show because there's some weird stuff in here.
Okay.
But it's the perfect
You don't want to give spoilers on the big.
yeah, perfect cult movie for a theater. And I said, I'm missing out. Because on my own, I'm like, that was weird. And I looked around and no one was there.
Your girls are like, yeah, Dad, turn it off.
Please. Nightmares.
This is the 4th horror movie in a row, Dad.
And then there are other times where I actually didn't want people to come over and watch it with me at my house because I thought they would kind of ruin the experience. Not ruin, but kind of corrupt the watching experience. Because you watch a movie and people say, I didn't really like that immediately. And I go, I kind of need to let that simmer. Like, it needs to stay with me for a little bit.
Like when I was sitting in that one Coen Brothers movie about Hollywood. What was that called?
Oh, just barely?
No, it was
a couple
about 3 years ago.
Well, what, the most recent one,
a
though.
recent
Yeah.
one.
With
What was it called?
Channing Tatum.
Yeah. You know the movie I'm talking about.
Surf's Up. It's not that. But
Sirs.
I just remembered that movie.
Penguins.
That movie ended and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't what it was advertised to be.
Hail Caesar.
Hail Caesar.
I was
the one,
close.
right. Anyway.
Surf's up, Hell Caesar.
So I guarantee you somebody in that theater got a chuckle of my reaction, you know?
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
like,
Speaking of corruption, Kent.
Oh, we're moving right to the
No,
corruption.
I'm just wondering if I were to have joined you, just sat on the couch and watched all these movies with you, How many of them would I had to talk to my bishop with about watching? That was a terrible sentence. But you get what I'm
So
saying.
I saw about 26 movies.
26?
How many parts of your blog?
Oh, I'm only doing
Showtime.com?
3.
Okay.
And so I'm
done
compiling a lot of reviews, and I will be ranking them for the last.
But I'm just wondering, like, rating-wise, in regard to MPA ratings, percentage, what are we talking, R to PG-13? I'm doubting there's any G or PG.
I would guess they're mostly R, right?
That's what I'm guessing. Like
mostly are actually this year half and half PG-13, half R.
Really?
My favorite movie of the festival and the one that won all the major awards is called CODA, CODA, and it was PG-13. I would say it's PG-13 from like my point of view.
Yeah.
And it was just this charmer. Like, it was just an audience favorite. If people saw this in theater, they'd be laughing all together. It's just heartwarming, and it's a tearjerker as well.
Emily was gushing over this one on
same.
Twitter. Because, are you going to give the synopsis of this
Yeah,
one?
so as a CODA, child of a deaf adult, Ruby is the only hearing person in her deaf family. When the family's fishing business is threatened, Ruby finds herself between pursuing her love of music and her fear of abandoning her parents.
Oh, that's
So it's like personal dreams versus family responsibility here.
a relatable
With
tale.
with a lot of musical numbers that are quite fun.
Musical numbers like in... Like,
Choir class.
yeah, but diegetic kind of in the movie kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So they fit because she's a great singer. And also Fergie Walsh-Pilo, who is in Sing Street.
Fergie's in this?
Yeah, Fergie. And I really like seeing
That's
Fergie
clever because
again.
CODA is a musical term.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, that's clever.
Marlee Matlin is the mother in this
She's
movie.
actually hearing impaired in real life.
And this movie is just so sweet. And, the parents a little bit crass because they can say whatever they want, right? With sign language.
Right.
And so they get away with a lot. And it shows, like, it has subtitles and everything, but you're like, oh man, having those parents would just, they try to embarrass her like every chance they can get. And it was just absolutely amazing. I loved it.
Okay.
It is kind of like the formulaic one of the whole Sundance Film Festival, but thankfully.
You literally said the word formulaic when I read the CODA is one of the most formulaic films of this year's festival.
Oh, you read my review?
On ShowtimeShowdown.com.
Yeah,
Well,
there you go.
formulaic seems very anti-Sundance. It's like, oh, let's break the mold.
It is
show mold growing.
It is totally, but for some reason they still let it win the awards. Because most every other movie I saw, I was like, I couldn't recommend that to anybody. Like, it appealed to me in many ways, but really, Sundance,
Guys,
that was a leap.
Sometimes it's okay to do the formulaic if you do it right.
Well, I mean, Coca-Cola has a formula that works for a lot of people.
Horror movies have a formula.
Rom-coms have a formula.
Exactly. And so, yeah, formulas can work.
If done right.
Yes. With good writing, great.
Because I tell you what, formulaic is a bad term, especially when it's like you can tell exactly where the movie's going and there's no surprises whatsoever. That's not good formula.
Yeah. So I saw a few horror films, and I always look forward to horror at Sundance because that's where I saw Hereditary for just a few years ago, and I saw
an uplifting
His House.
rom-com.
Oh my goodness, that's the corruption and darkness you're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly.
But it's those movies where I see it for the first time and I go, "Wow, like only 200 people have seen this movie, and I feel like we're all kind of more evil now." And it's kind of that unique experience. Where is that wrong that I want that experience?
To be evil?
To be possessed?
to be
Don't
evil
say that.
and exclusive, yeah, that's you.
Yeah, I don't like
exclusive.
exclusivity. We know that. And so this year, Sundance definitely had a theme with its horror. It's like, hey, our fans like slow burn. Let's make everything slow burn. And sometimes not even pay off.
Yeah.
Oh.
So there are a lot of movies that were just psychological. And I was like, okay, it's going to get awesome. It's going to get awesome. And then it just kind of doesn't. But there was one formulaic horror film that I really liked. It's called 8 for Silver. And this one...
the number 8 for silver?
8 for Silver. And this one, it wasn't even in their midnight
Sounds like a
section.
pirate movie.
Kind of is. So it's a 1900...
Right?
8 pieces of silver.
It takes place in the 1900s. It's in like early America-ish. Like you have rich families and stuff, and there's gypsies they want off their land. And so when there's a massacre... Yeah, when there's a massacre... Well, the gypsies kind of get revenge. They put a curse, a little bit Drag Me to Hell style.
Do they shame her?
A little bit. Oh, actually a lot. And this movie immediately turns freaky. And there's a lot of jump scares, but there's cool creature design. A little too much CG, but the practical effects,
And
similar to The Thing.
I hear the CG is a little bit spotty.
Which is weird because you don't expect to see CG in any Sundance movie.
You hear that, or you just read that on your computer
I
right
just
now?
read that on my computer on Showtime Showdown.
Hey!
You got his blog up?
But it's quite fun. I really liked 8 for Silver. I will be watching it again this Halloween. I don't know if it's been picked up.
It's not like like heavy Hereditary type feel. It sounds like
Heavens,
though.
no.
This is what it sounds
You'd
like.
be
more
able
like
to
Drag Me
enjoy
Hell.
it, but the blood is pretty harsh.
Is it comedic in nature?
No, not at all.
So this isn't Drag Me to Hell kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's straight up scary,
Okay.
which is fun. But yeah, you'll have to get edited a little bit.
All right. Did it get picked up?
Not yet.
Oh.
Whereas CODA did get picked up by Apple Plus for $25 million,
The highest amount any place ever paid for a movie there, right?
which is weird because they're all just going to streaming now, and I don't know if they make their money back or not.
You also gave a B+ to On the Count of Three.
On the Count of Three is very, very sad.
Is it?
It's two best friends who basically have a
I read
suicide
your review of
pact.
this one. Yeah.
And they're very depressed. It's all about like, hey, let's take each other out, and that's how it's gonna. And then
At the end of the final day, they're going to just take each other out.
well, yeah, they basically give themselves, hey, we have one day to live. We're on borrowed time. Let's go do crazy stuff we always meant to do. And then they just kind of have a friendship, like buddy comedy sort. It's not a straight up comedy, but there are really funny parts.
But there's that
a lot of
looming
darkness,
thought
100%
over the whole movie.
And so that's the urgency of the movie. It just hurts a little bit because you're like, something's going to happen at the end. I don't know what. And it's funny, and you fall in love with these two characters, and then you find out what's happened to them in their lives to make them want to go, and you're like, no, please don't. And the script is amazing. It did win an award for screenplay.
Oh, so it's going to be a big hit on Valentine's. What you're saying?
You know what's also really harrowing? Mass. So Mass, it was written by Fran Kranz.
MASS?
Yes.
Okay.
Fran Kranz, he was on Cabin in the Woods. He's the pothead on Cabin in the Woods.
Oh yeah. He was in Dollhouse too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the end of Buffy as well.
Yeah.
And he wrote this movie. It stars Jason Isaacs, Martha Plimpton, and Dowd. And it's just a movie with four people in a like church meeting room. And it's the parents of I almost don't know if I want to spoil it because you go into the movie and they don't explain what's going to happen, but two sets of parents meet and they're talking about their sons. And there is a horrific tragedy that preceded this by a couple of years. And it is heartbreaking. And
Now he's known for being a little more comedic, but this doesn't sound comedic at all.
0%. This is a one-time watch, and oh man, it gets you. It's tear-worthy throughout because his parents
TEAR.
Yeah, it's parents grieving. Basically.
Oh, by the way, back it up here. CODA, you told me you cried multiple times during that movie.
Two and a half times.
It's a huge deal.
You don't cry in
Bury the
movies.
lead.
And get this. One was during a happy song.
What? You happy cried?
Are you becoming me?
You happy cried at a not How to Train Your
Guys,
Dragon movie.
I haven't seen a new movie like this in a long time.
Yeah.
Right? It's been a long time. Also, COVID brain. That's a thing.
Yeah.
And it was just really special. It was really nice.
So I'm going to bawl my eyes out. Is what
yeah,
saying.
you're going to bawl your eyes out.
You bring up one of my questions I had for you. Did you notice any pandemic influence in the movies you watched?
Yeah, there was a theme.
Yeah.
There was a movie that was made before the pandemic, but it is a pandemic movie. It's called In the Earth, and it is a annihilation type movie where you go
Annihilation, the movie with Natalie Portman.
Yeah, these two people go into the woods and they're escaping. Well, one's a scientist, one's a ranger, and they're in a city. There's a huge pandemic, and so there's like no one there. It's a very small cast, and it just gets really spacey and kind of crazy, and it's like folk horror, almost like the horror you don't see.
What was this one called?
It's called In the Earth.
Is it worth watching?
For people like me, yes. For you, Joel, because you didn't like Annihilation, no.
He gave it a B.
Maybe they did Annihilation right.
It's Annihilation without the effects. But because there's no bear.
No
Let's say
bear?
that. But I actually,
Then what's the point?
I really liked it because there are.
They should have called it Skull Bear.
There's
Not Annihilation. Skull Bear.
Skull Bear. I'd watch that movie. There's crazy people in the woods that are just it's horrible, but it's really it's quite good. Joel, I know you had questions on Edgar Wright's documentary.
Yeah, because it was about Sparks.
Yeah,
Sparks Brothers.
Nicholas?
No.
Thank goodness no. Although I'd watch that
there's
too.
a musical
If it was
group out there.
I'd watch Edgar Wright do anything.
Yes.
So I saw Weird Al Yankovic, because I follow him on Instagram and Twitter.
Naturally.
I saw him tweet out something about how he'd made the cut to this documentary. He's very happy about it. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing.
Yeah.
And it was directed by then I saw it was directed by Edgar Wright. I've never heard of this band.
That's the joke. So Sparks is a band. They started in mid-'70s and are still going. Mm-hmm. They're a band with very little drama. They're from L.A., but everyone thinks they're like a British band because that's their style. There's no real genre they fit into, but I would say they're closest to prog rock.
Okay.
And so Edgar Wright loves this band.
And in the trailer, there's a lot of people celebrities that I know talking about how they love this band.
The description is it's the documentary about your favorite band's favorite band.
Yeah.
Because all the people that are popular alternative and rock artists or people from even 70s and 80s are like, oh my gosh, Sparks, why don't more people know about this band?
Yeah.
And they're still alive. They're just doing their thing. They're just a drama-free band.
A hit?
They had
radio
hits.
play?
They had influential hits for bands. And they had radio play. They were on Dick Clark's show, whatever that was, American Bandstand, a lot. Very popular in England, which is a lot. Most of the fans there were in England. But the thing is, they just never really broke the mainstream for one reason or another, which they do describe. And it's Edgar Wright, so the editing here is quite fun. Mm-hmm. I'm listening to it on Spotify. Like it is very persuasive. Here's the problem though. Edgar Wright. Okay. Remember when we did our Doctor Who show and I was like, let me spend an hour and a half talking about Doctor Who and why you should love it.
Yeah.
I could have done that in 40 minutes, and I probably should have. But I
think we did do that in 40 minutes because we had a lunch break.
Okay, maybe.
Back
but
in the days, yeah.
Or me talking about the Snyder Cut. I could preach about that forever. This is what Edgar Wright is doing about this band, Sparks. It's 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Wow.
You can tell, though, based on all of his whole career, Edgar Wright is a music nerd.
Yes.
He really is.
And this is his style.
Yeah.
All the way. It was just about 20, 25 minutes too long. I was like, I get it. But you don't have to show me every song and all the concert footage and all these interviews. It's spliced together really well, but he just couldn't cut anything here. And he could have easily. So I didn't give this one as high a grade. It was about a B-.
Do you think a Netflix cut might be a little bit shortened?
Yeah, but would they? I don't know. This is worth watching if you just need to watch everything Edgar Wright and are open to liking a band like this.
I actually
because we listened to Rush all last year. It's similar enough to Rush.
Rush the band.
Probably more fun.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was worth watching. But then there were some movies, like there's this one that I saw on day 2, and I talked to Emily. And
day 2. How many days were you actually watching movies for?
It was up until today, so 6.
6 days you were binge watching
at
movies
least 4 movies a day
at home.
6,
not showering.
Yeah, I showered. It was just like in 3 in the morning.
Were you watching movies in the shower?
Yeah, basically.
Because you could.
Yeah, you really could. And there were a lot of times.
Did you watch the movies in the bathroom?
No.
Okay.
There were times. You really want to know?
No. You connect
I left the door open. I had my laptop open, and I just kind of looked out the door.
Oh man,
there's no one else there. It's my free weekend.
That's true.
But there was a movie day 2 where I was quite excited to see it. It's called Cryptozoo.
Yeah,
and because we had our cryptid show last year on Bacon Cell, I was like, cool. I know all about Jeff the Talking Mongoose and more about Sasquatch or Giant Elephant or
Jersey Devil.
Jersey Devil. And I was really excited. And it was about these people who were just quite progressive and they started a zoo to protect cryptids. And I was really excited. And then the movie starts and Emily already saw it. And I was like, she says, you won't like it, but please watch it so we can talk about it later. And I'm like, you would. And the movie starts and it's animated, all hand drawn, almost like poorly hand drawn. Mm-hmm. But I was like, wow, is this a feature film or a short?
Gory kind of cartoon kind of thing?
Yeah, but not as good.
Okay.
But the animation is actually what keeps you watching. So you're like, wow, they really spent an hour and 40 minutes like making this, well, obviously a lot longer, but making a hour and 40 minute movie all hand drawn. And the movie happens and it's quite rated R. Like quite. I'm talking nudity scenes
in a hand-drawn animated film.
Yeah, quite. There are a lot characters that are running around completely naked.
Okay,
and they're I was a little disappointed, and maybe this is just my subjectivity, but the cryptids they showed were not the cryptids. They weren't the Yeti. They weren't Loch Ness Monster. It was more like, hey, Gorgons. Hey, what other mythological beast? Chimera.
Did you say Medusa?
Cerberus? Yeah, Medusa is Gorgon. And so they have all these mythological creatures,
I was thinking Grogu.
Not mythical creatures. Like it was more Clash of the Titans style in modern day. But the allegory is that we people look down on these freaks of nature, on these mythological creatures. And so it was definitely like a race baiting sort of movie. And it was, a lot of people love it. I'll say that. A lot of people loved it. A lot of upper, nose in the air critics really like this. I did.
We'll call them Kent.
Oh no. Because I need some formula.
Kent's nose is like a 45-degree angle. They're up at the 90.
Yeah, exactly. And this was not very good. The animation kept me watching.
Will it be nominated for Best Animated Feature?
No, but it did win an award at the festival. But this is just,
most nudity.
Yeah, basically most animated nudity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was not my cup of tea. Yeah, I would easily spit this one out. I finished this movie because Emily asked me to, and so we could talk about it after. And yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and there's just a lot of indie stuff where it was just real, nothing happened. And so I will say this, of the 26 movies I saw, I think 25% were really, really good. 50,
So a quarter.
Yeah.
A quarter of the 26 movies you watched were
And
good.
a quarter.
What's a quarter of 26, Kent?
It was, I'd say 5 movies I really liked.
Wow.
And then half of the movies I saw were okay.
Okay.
But how is that compared to a normal year?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then but I just saw more movies, right?
Dude, that's
And
why
then-
I don't do the Sundance.
And then about 5 or 6 were just, in my opinion, terrible.
Right.
Some I just turned off, and I won't review them because I turned off the movie, and I said I can't do
that's
it.
nice because you wouldn't
What
feel like you
kind
could
of
walk out of
movie
a
does
theater,
it have
right?
to be for Kent to turn it off?
It's super boring,
Oh, okay.
super boring. And then I watched the last 5 minutes, and I was like, nah, it wasn't for me.
That's the other thing you mentioned to me, which I thought was very interesting, is that you could, and you wouldn't review them because it wouldn't be fair, but you could watch a beginning of a movie and be like, I don't think I'm going to like this, and skip to the end, where you can't do that at the Sundance Film Festival. And you have to sit through the whole stupid things.
But that's so tricky because how many if I only watched the first half of Interstellar, I'd have been like, this is the worst.
Well, you wouldn't because it's brilliant, but it is totally unfair. That's why I won't review these movies because it's unfair for me to do that.
But you'd still hold that opinion.
I would just never watch the movie or even talk about it publicly. Not to be like, oh, skip this one because the first 20 minutes went nowhere. You know, if I said that about some of my favorite movies, like you said, Interstellar.
Yeah, Interstellar. I really legitimately did not like the first hour of Interstellar, and then the rest of the movie happened, and then it made the first part better.
I just worry, however, that a lot of those 90-degree uppity critic types or other people,
I like that that's an actual demographic now.
That they would have either jumped through a movie, like skipped through it, and then been like, I hated that. Or watch a double speed or something like that.
I'll be honest. Last year when I went, and there's a critic screening room, a theater, where it's just critics from across the world. And I saw a few movies there because they're just open. You have to see movies on their schedule. Like they say, here's what we're playing at this time. And I went, and there were so many critics on their phones. And I said, the disrespect here. And granted, when you're watching at home, your phone's right there. And it's such a temptation. But you can't. You just shouldn't. But even when you're in those critic screening rooms, they're probably doing business, but they're on their phones. And I'm like, where is the respect? These filmmakers are making movies so you can talk about them and spread buzz.
They hand drew that nudity for crying out loud.
Yeah. And so I think there are a few people out there that are being a little disingenuous.
I just think that, with my suspicion about critics at Sundance already heightened,
right,
this year it feels like I'm taking all the reviews with a grain of salt as well, because I'm like, well, did you get the viewing experience?
Well, and this, I talked about this last year, Sundance goggles. When you're the first one of 300 people to see a movie, you're like, what an amazing experience.
It's a soft opening of a restaurant.
Exactly.
It's a soft opening of a Zaxby's where you're like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you eat it later, you're like, that's fine.
Which is why I generally don't give
Not
A's.
a sponsor.
I don't give A's on my first viewing, but CODA just won me over, and honestly, making me cry, that's surefire.
That's big.
This will be in my top 10 at the end of the year because that may be the only few movies that I see by the end of the year.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, that was my Sundance experience. Once again, it's ShowtimeShowdown.com. You can check out my reviews there and my final ranking for all the movies I saw. There's a lot going on, but thank you for listening, bearing with me.
Now, we only talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies.
I could go into more.
I want a 10 just to round it out.
You want one more movie?
One more.
There's one movie I could not wait to see.
One more that you wanted to talk about, but you haven't been able to yet.
There's one I wanted to see so bad. It's called John and the Hole. And here's the description. It's a coming-of-age psychological thriller that plays out the unsettling reality of a kid who holds his family captive in a hole in the ground.
Oh,
that sounds dark.
Right? And it's a coming-of-age movie. And so this creepy kid, he's about 11. And Michael C. Hall plays his dad, by the way.
Oh.
And, you think he'd be the creepy one, but whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he basically puts his family in a hole and lives his life. And you're like, and you could tell this kid's a little disturbed. And you're like, oh man, and there's so many opportunities for this movie just to get dark. But it's more of an allegory about growing up and going out in the world on your own. It's almost like, hey, it's time to grow up and I feel all alone. Because he just kind of lives out. It's not even like, I called this Home Alone, but the kid poisons his family and puts him in a hole.
Hey.
But it's just kind of this bland story where it just tried to explain a grander theme than it was actually being a movie. Because he just has this buddy come over and they play video games, and he just orders like chicken wings, and it's really boring. And the family's in the hole, and they're like, what is going on? Save us. Let us out. What is wrong with you, kid? And they're like, please, we won't, put you away.
If
if
put
you
their
let
family in a hole growing up as a teenager.
Oh, okay. So this is a thing.
Yeah.
And it just went nowhere. And this is one of those where I'm like, Sundance, don't let me down. That premise is so cool. And the filmmaker just didn't know what to do with it and just made it like, hey, this is for the child inside all of us that just had to grow up one day.
No.
Like, no.
Now, I was going to say, are there any like that are getting buzz that you didn't talk about or you didn't see, like ones that you wish you would have?
Nope. I saw everything I needed to, which was great because for me, because I had my pass, granted, I was very fortunate. I could see the premieres when they played, and then I watched Twitter for the buzz, and I could see them the day or two after as well.
So you don't feel left out of the
And
loop?
it's on demand for the whole day. So I saw everything I need to see. There were a lot of documentaries that were pretty great. But yeah, those were the like notable ones from like top to bottom.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right. So there you go. There's Kent's review of Sundance 2021.
Till next year, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we hope that next year's even, I guess we'll see.
Hopefully we'll have 7 great movies instead of 5 or 6.
This has been Bacon Sale.
Is that wrong that I want that experience?
To be evil?
To be possessed?
To be
Don't
evil
say that.
and exclusive? Yeah, that's you.